Welcome to the REI Diamond Interview, your source for real estate investment jewels of wisdom with Dan Breslin.
Welcome to the REI Diamond Show with Mark Ainley on pulling back the curtain of a high-volume turnkey rental business. I'm Dan Breslin and host of the REI Diamond Show. I'm dedicated to helping you discover new ways to increase, multiply, and protect your net worth. Each week, I invite a high-caliber performer to share their unique experience as it relates to real estate investing. This week's guest is Mark Ainley, founder of GC Realty Investments, a turnkey rental provider here in the Chicagoland market. Mark runs a full-service real estate brokerage and employs 29 people between two locations. Mark's team currently manages more than 500 rental units, 7 condo associations, and more than 1 million square feet of commercial space. I'm expecting more than just a few jewels of wisdom here on this episode. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate you having me on. I listen to all your other podcasts, and they're very informational. I only hope I could give back as much as the others do.
Nice. I appreciate that. And I like to say that, too. I point that out on quite a few of the guests have been listeners, avid listeners, and it's funny. I get a chance to meet people who are the more successful people that I meet, who are audience members who listen to our show here, Mark, do listen to most. And I think it's just that hunger for knowledge that successful people develop that ends up kind of leading to more success. So how did you get started originally in real estate? And then, after you answer that, we'll get on to how you got started in the turnkey, and we'll talk about that business.
I bought an investment property back in 2003 with my current partner through GC Realty. And at the time, my best friend had a real estate license, and he was always say, "Mark, get your real estate license, get your real estate license." And I never listened to him to that day. I came home with the closing HUD, and he did on his little calculator. We didn't used to have the iPhones then at that time, but he did on his little calculator. He said, "Mark, you could have this commission today." And I said, and it was like $3,200. And in that second, I said, that could have covered the cost for this, this, and this. And I realized I didn't have that money, and I was mad. So instantly, that afternoon, I went and paid the money to get the course to get my real estate license. Within a few months of that, it was probably about 45 days later, my best friend approached me about opening a company, and that was GC Realty Development. I didn't know what that even meant back then. I was maybe 22 or 23, and just, I could put on a business card president. So I thought that was cool enough right in itself to say yes. So we started GC Realty Development in 2003, really working out of his basement here in the Chicagoland area in St. Charles. And then we sold a commercial building to a client that didn't need the office. They just needed the warehouse. So we kind of moved defunct industrial warehouse office space that I don't know if the basement might have even been better than that office space now that I look back. So we started there. He was the managing broker. I was always the number two. And we always kind of just planned on growing the company that way. And then in 2006, I don't talk about this too much on too many podcasts, so your podcast kind of gets the first on this. But 2006, he was killed in a car accident, my best friend that I grew up with. And that night, that morning, I was forced to grow up. I was forced to figure out what I wanted to do next. We had actually a company established at that point. Value not too much there, but it was something rolling, something growing, something that we had plans for. So I immediately went and got my broker's license. I took over the company from the family. The name meant a lot to me at that point, that GC Realty Development, to hold on to it. So took over the company. My current partner now, he was actually the night of the accident starting his real estate license. So he was already coming on board. Later that year, 2006, he became the business partner with GC. So me and him are 50-50 on that front. And we've kind of grown ever since, diving into the industrial commercial world for both brokerage and property management, and then full blown into the residential property management, as really most of our brokerage over the years has consisted of selling investment properties to others, which later on the turnkey only kind of becomes a natural fit to fit into what we do.
Sorry to hear about the loss of your business partner, Mark. That's tragic.
Yeah, no, it was tough times. It's actually a 10-year anniversary a week ago, so it's kind of amazing. Decades worth of time has passed since. But we've accomplished a lot, so it's pretty cool in that sense.
What were your reasoning, or why did you choose the industrial and commercial, and how did you carve out a niche and become successful in that space? Because I know a lot of people simply overlook that or just don't even know where to start on something like that.
Well, it's tough on the industrial. So in the commercial world, industrial, commercial, or even retail, office space, all that world of brokerage, it's a much smaller world than on the residential side. You might have an entire Chicagoland area. There might only be 300 or 400 real estate agents that really do 80% of the volume of transactions. When you go into a residential market, there might be 400 agents in a single town that kind of all split up that piece. So it's a little more exclusive, which makes it a little harder to kind of get into and get viewed as a commercial agent. But we were able to kind of break that barrier by being able to take over some management and then kind of put our names on some buildings and then be able to get over a couple of agents that have been in the industry for some time to kind of share with other people who we are. So that was kind of our angle with that.
Did you have some special edge that you were able to carve out and get those first 1, 2, 3 clients, or were there connections that you or your partner kind of had built up prior to that, you know, planted the seed for that portion of the business?
It's funny you asked that, because yes, there really was, now that you asked that question. So when I first got into the first couple of industrial clients, you know, guys who look for 10 or 15 or 20,000 square foot buildings, I went, you know, I was very aggressive back then. I drive around looking for buildings for these clients even. And I call on these signs that they're in front of these buildings. One, I would never find them online. And two, these guys would never call me back. Or it might be a week that they call me back. And I said, man, if we just apply some customer service here and just answer our phone or maybe do a little online marketing, there's no way we could fail at this. And plus, we have some of the largest industrial parks kind of in the country here around the O'Hare market in Chicago. So that inventory definitely helped that. But in a industry that was very not modern, we were able to kind of carve out our piece just by being aggressive pretty quick.
Nice. That makes sense. So let's talk about, you know, the business as it looks today. We'll talk both about, you know, the brokerage, how you've been successful, maybe the value provide there to grow to the size that you are now. And then also we'll start to just kind of paint a picture for the turnkey rental side. Because I assume they're kind of like two side-by-side businesses almost, even if the ownership's the same, Mark?
Yes. They are two side-by-side business. On the turnkey, on the development side, we do have a third partner on that side, on that front. But yeah, they really run, I mean, they're all under the kind of the same GC Realty Development name, and all the marketing and all the set staff and all that. They all kind of work together on both.
Okay. So let's talk about the brokerage quick first, you know, how that looks, because I have a feeling, and where I'm going with this is I want to paint kind of the foundational picture, because I think this is going to help be the answer. I'm sort of like expecting certain answers when we get to the turnkey part. So I'd like to just touch and paint a picture of what the brokerage looks like today. Who are the clients? You know, how many deals are cooking? Things of that nature. Of course. We
specialize really on the industrial side of things, really 25,000 square feet buildings and under, and mostly in that O'Hare market going west out on 90 out to like the Elgin market. In the Elk Grove market, the last 3 years in a row, we sold more buildings than any other company in that 25,000 and smaller space. So we if you drive around Elk Grove, you'll see our signs everywhere. We've really been able to put a strong foothold in Elk Grove specifically, which is the second largest industrial park in the country.
So is that business comprised mostly of sales, mostly of management, or what percentage split would be the sources of income for that company?
Oh, so on that front, so the industrial we do probably about, on the brokerage side, we do about 50% leasing, 50% sales. The sales have crept up the last couple of years. You know, when 2009 hit, we were pretty much 100% leasing because no one was buying any buildings back then. But that's kind of leveled out to be about a 50-50 between leasing and sales. And then if you look at the management and the brokerage together, our income stream really is about 50-50 between brokerage and management. And the cool thing about management is we have continuing clients. So if we manage a 9-unit industrial building, you know, once or twice a year, those spaces will come up available, which our brokerage will come and lease that out. So it's kind of provides constant leads. The management's always been a great lead generator for the brokerage side of things. If a tenant's moving out, they might want to go buy a building. We can help them. If that space comes empty, we can fill that space. The owner wants to buy a new building. He's talking to us on a weekly basis. So we're right there in his space to help him find a new building, or we can bring him buildings that we know of. So it's a constant lead generator is what the property management provides for the brokerage side of things. Interesting.
Now, do you stick only to those two micro markets, or would you work a deal if it came in, you know, somewhere 45 minutes outside of that usual market area?
Well, that's the exciting thing that's the other cool thing about industrial commercial is it's neighborhood specific. You know, a residential agent might market or field a specific neighborhood, a specific town, or a specific town. A warehouse really in Libertyville versus a warehouse in the suburb of Chicago, a warehouse in the western suburbs is really, similar type numbers to that deal. It's going to rent for a similar type price. So the market's pretty similar all around Chicago, even going kind of into the northwest Indiana
I know I'm asking a lot of questions about that brokerage side and the industrial. It's just a unique experience for me to have somebody on the show and get to talk about something besides the single family rentals. And we are going to get to everybody listening. We'll get to the turnkey, I promise. But I do have one or two more I'd like to ask. So the clientele, the investment clientele in the industrial and commercial space, Mark, is that typically a business owner who's generated large amounts of cash income, wealth, otherwise separate from real estate, or do you get the entrepreneurial-minded investors like we see in the single-family residential market where, hey, real estate's the only thing, I'm flipping houses and buying rentals? Do we have a delineation or like a client avatar that you could say this is kind of like the guys or, gals or whoever it is that's owning property and being the investor, owning and renting out commercial industrial space?
Most of our clients fit the bill of they've been longtime real estate investors and they might own 10 or 15 different properties or have in the last few years. And they've hired us mostly as an exit strategy for management or the ability to go down to Florida for 4 months of the year. So they're more lifelong, larger portfolio holders, but mostly localized to the Chicago market. That's really what our clientele is for the management.
Got it. So on the brokerage side of things, is there an intentional ignoring, or did we just not touch on the residential aspect, or do you not touch single family with the brokerage whatsoever?
No, we can't get away from the residential. I'm not saying we want to, but with the property management, when you manage 500 units, there's always investors that want to buy new properties. They want, obviously, the leasing component of that, and then, time comes up, they sell their properties. A lot of people we manage for on the single-family home side, we might only be managing it because they became accidental landlords. They had to move or they got divorced, but they couldn't sell their house in the downturn a few years ago, and they're still trying to get back to the level of what they owe on it. In the next year or two, they might be at that level. They will be at that level most likely. And they'll hire us to sell that as well, too. So we do have the residential division, but it really is surrounded by our management clientele and their needs. We're not out there soliciting or farming different neighborhoods to get listings. We sold this house next door type marketing stuff. No. None
of that. You got no REO inventory or anything like that?
No. We dabbled with a few there, but that was a market that we were probably late to the game of getting into compared to guys like Joe Mueller and stuff.
Got it. Sounds like a lot of companies, at least from my perspective, you have areas and you analyze your strengths and you figure out, hey, I can win in this space. Here's why I believe I can win. And it's kind of the same thing that you just told me with the industrial. I'm driving around, I'm calling signs, and I'm not getting a call back for a week, 10 days, and I'm trying to place a client with 25,000 square feet of a 5 or a 10-year lease, and I can't even get a call back for a week. Hey, I can do that better and I can win there, right? And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know, if it's like a trap in the beginning. It was certainly a trap that I fell in, thinking, hey, I can win in every space. And, one day I'm running around and I'm trying to do office building, purchase investing, getting the guy to hold pay. Next day I'm doing a single family. And, by not staying laser focused for me early on, at least, I know that was like some of the challenge. And lately I've had that same conversation with myself on a few occasions. Well, where can I win? What place in my business, what am I good at? Me personally, I'm really good at finding off-market deals that no one else knows about. So that's, if I keep focusing there and building there and I, double that or even get incremental gains, I'm still building a stronger presence in business in whichever markets I operate for myself, my partners, and the people that I'm doing business with. Aside from that, figuring out the strengths and knowing where to win, Mark, let's talk about kind of the direction with the single-family houses. So you've done, I forget what you mentioned. I think in your profile you said something like 200 plus, purchase, renovation, refinance, purchase, renovation. So you did over 200 deals that way, correct?
Yes, definitely. And that's for stuff that we've owned or we've purchased, and we started that really in 2008 in the downtick. Now, aside from that, what we did a lot of was probably another 75 or 80 deals was we find a property for a client, he buys it, we fix it up for him, and then we either rent it out or we sell it for him. So that goes back to the conversation we're having. It's just not really the vision. Yeah, we made money along the way on all those things, but it took us focus on things that we could grow faster on. We have in our experience about over 300 various city and suburb deals that we've either acquired ourselves, helped our investors that we manage for acquire them, fix them up, and then put them on the rental roll or sell them for them.
So when I was preparing for our episode here, I took a look at your site, and I'm looking at all the addresses. I'm saying, oh, this is all on the south side of Chicago. And I know from my own experience in doing deals on the south side of Chicago, as you probably are well aware of yourself, each block is not created equal. And like me being from Philadelphia originally, I'm kind of like a duck out of water. Mark, I imagine you figured out which blocks are the right blocks to buy on the south side, right?
Yep. Well, in 2008, when we started buying there, we just bought anything anywhere. It was under $5,000, under $10,000. We were excited. We thought it was a steal because we got this 3,000 square foot single family home for $3,500. And come time to that first turnover, we wanted to have a heart attack because it cost us $6,000 in flooring to redo. We learned a lot along the way. So fast forwarding just for a second here, the stuff we sell today, or the stuff we're investing today alongside of the stuff we're selling, is accumulation of a lot of hard-learned lessons or wasted money on neighborhoods and blocks and areas that we steer clear from nowadays.
So you just answered the next question I was thinking about asking, which was, how did you learn the good blocks and the bad blocks? And it sounds like through sheer experience and costly lessons.
Yeah, definitely. In what we do, we have a lot of relationships nowadays with whether it be the alderman's office or the local non-for-profits that might be trying to clean up neighborhoods, and then also the CAPS, which is the police department's kind of neighborhood meeting groups and so forth. And then, in various neighborhoods, there's block clubs that you become affiliated with them, and right away, a lot of block clubs, there are people looking out for that block, and it might only be that one block, but that block is perfect compared to the next block. So I'm just kind of doing our research and growing our network on the south side to help us make very informed decisions on what we buy. What
drove your decision in 2008 to start buying this inventory, Mark?
Well, I took a client of mine that we're managing some properties for in suburban Naperville. He said, Mark, there's an auction on Sunday in the city. You want to come and represent me as your real estate agent? I said, sure. I got no better to do with Sunday. It's not like anything's going on. So I went with him to that auction, and we sat there. I've never been to an auction, so that was the other motivation for me. It was really cool. The whole talking fast and throwing up paddles, it was pretty fun. Now all the auctions we do are really online, but that was a cool experience. And at the end of that auction, he purchased 3 properties for $75,000. And I just said, what the heck just happened? And it blew me away. And again, at that point, I'm sitting there in the nice, comfy hotel in downtown Loop. I didn't realize where he was buying. He was buying on the south side of Chicago and public neighborhoods. So he asked me after that auction, he said, Mark, we're going to head down here. He had a place in Hyde Park at the time. We're going to head down here. You want to drive by this one? It's not far from where we're going. So I drove down there. It was May 2008. It was a warm Sunday afternoon, and there's a lot of people everywhere. As the real estate agent, I'm trying to get the combo between the auction and the property. And there was no need, because as we pulled up, the door was kicked right open. There's no need for a lockbox at that point. All the windows are busted out. You walk in, you can see a big sheriff's sign. It was a condo building, a 3-flat, and the sheriff's sign was on the front, the first unit. The door to the second floor unit was kicked in. That was the unit he bought for $25,000. And at that point, I'm feeling horrible as his real estate agent. Like, I should have never let him buy this. What did I do? Like, I was feeling really guilty. Like, should I run? I didn't know what to do at that point. And he kind of was looking around. He wasn't saying much, and that was making me more nervous. And he said, the whole building was empty. There was a failed condo conversion, and all 4 were vacant. He said, Mark, can you see if any of the other units are available? I kind of took the what type tone of it. I'm like, are you crazy? And he's like, yeah, no, this is great. This is awesome. I said, well, you got to explain this to me. So he just simply stood there and he said, all right, we bought for $25,000, and you just round numbers. We're going to put the HVAC back in. It's going to be this much. We're going to put this much into here. We're going to redo the hardwood, and we'll rent it out for $1,000. Like, really? And I kind of just did the quick math in my head. But I shot home that night. I broke out the Excel spreadsheet and I ran the numbers, and like, wow, it came out to be like a 22% cash on cash return. I was very uninformed what the pro forma should look like at that time, but just as a rough estimate, it came out to be the struggles of at the time of that particular neighborhood. But it came out to be like 22%, and I'm like, wow, right away I'm thinking even if I borrowed money at 15%, I could still have a gap in interest there, and I can make money. Not thinking about what our later on plan was to be, but so right away somehow I went to my partner and kind of presented to him, and that was really how we got into investing on the south side, and really. I got my license in 2003, and the market was on the way up at that point. So when I got my real estate license, really what I did is I sold investment properties of all these condo conversions. It was easy. Anyone could get loans. The game plan is we sold, I must have sold, I don't know the exact number, but over that first 2 years of my license, I sold well over 100 condo conversion units to guys that got 100% financing, and the end game plan was to sell in 6 months once the condo conversion was sold out and make $30,000. And I made a lot of people a lot of money, and that's how we were able to grow early on. You make anybody money, they come back or they refer or they talk about you. So that was a big boost early on in my career. But I didn't know what cash flow was in 2003. I didn't realize it. And it took that Sunday afternoon to make me realize that, wow, that's huge. This is what it's all about right here. And it just was totally like eye-opening that day. So that's how we got into the South Side there.
Okay, so then you buy, and you're doing like these 75 or so, I'll call them accidental turnkeys, where you bought with the client, managed construction, then managed the rentals. So it was kind of like a turnkey deal. And then you did somewhere around 200 of these properties yourself. So that 200, Mark, were these like you, partner, and a partner renovating and doing refinances, kind of like buying, getting your cash back out? Was that sort of the model up until maybe 2 years ago?
That turned into the first model, and we said we'll borrow short-term money, do everything cash, and then we'll cash out. Now, this is 2009, so our first cash-out loan was about 8.5 points and 12.95 interest with some private equity firm out of California. That was pulling teeth. That was horrible, that first deal. But obviously, as time went on, that loosened up, and that was our motto as far as cash out. Our goal is always to get 90 to 110% of our money back, and kind of always average out that we got most of our money back. But so we did. So we had that partner there. I ended up partnering in with the gentleman I took to the auction, and my current partner that is still my partner in GC. And we did 142 units. At that point, we were actually approached by private equity to run and operate a fund, a $10 million fund that he was starting up to do the same thing that we were kind of already doing, but really be funded, I guess, at that point, where we wouldn't have to worry about money or financing or cashing out or any of that stuff. And ultimately, the deal is lots of thick signing of stacks and stacks of legalities, and you had to commit to deadlines and budgets and all that. And ultimately, I said no, I didn't want to do that. And then our third partner ultimately went ahead and he elected to do that, and then it kind of left me and my current partner. We were going to kind of go back to GC Realty Development and work on the brokerage, the management there. And then we teamed up shortly after that with our current third partner, who we've really worked with for the last 3 years now.
Is the new partner kind of managing the construction component of the business?
The new partner is our CFO. He is our guiding light in the sense of he's got the big vision, and he's able to recognize small details. So he's able to bounce back and forth on both. He's really able to really strategize and ask the right questions today that we make decisions on that will affect something that's going to happen 18 months down the road. So he's been a huge addition to me and Brian that has changed us and really the way we think all together.
Got it. So, in this scenario, the 142 units, quick question. Would you do packages of 5? Would you refinance each one out? Would you try to buy 4, 5, 10 at a time? What was kind of like the cookie cutter strategy numbers-wise for these units before you would go to the bank and do a refinance?
Are you asking how we refinanced out? Is that what your question was, or how we got the money?
So along the way of the 142 or so, maybe like your first one, you did a cash out refi on number 1. Would you literally refi them one at a time, or would you make a model of, say, buy 5 and then refinance to do like one blanket mortgage, or would you try to put 10 into each package for the refinance mortgage? Like, was there a number, a target, at which point in time you would have to do the refinance?
That was a struggle early on for us, because at the time when we started this business model, we never realized how tight the capital markets were. We never realized how, we thought we had a property, we had $50,000 into it, and it's making a lot of money back on a monthly basis, and there's no way no one won't give us money for this. But we never realized how tight the markets were, how much in trouble so many banks were. And it really took us, so that, like I said before, that first cash out we did was like for 10 properties. We paid a boatload of fees and huge prepayment penalties and huge interest rates. And so that was really we kind of almost reanalyzed our model at that point to see if this is even feasible. But shortly after that, the local community banks started opening up, and we took a few packages to a few different banks and got 5 to 10 unit portfolios financed kind of in one 5-year term balloon. And at the same time, there was some new banks popping up or banks that were buying out other banks that all of a sudden they needed to get some loans on the books. So they're being a little more aggressive and working with people like us. So things open up clearly a lot faster after 2010 and to what they are today. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I remember the tightness of the market in those times. It was not fun. Yeah, so let's talk about the components of the turnkey rental business. So from my perspective, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. I have deals. You got to have a source of inventory. I have capital. I have to have certainly short-term capital, whether that's my own cash, whether that's, you in your case, whether it's your cash, whether it comes from private money. You got to have capital to at least buy the deal and then renovate the deal before you either refinance, sell it out to a turnkey buyer or whatever the exit strategy is. So I got the deal, the capital, the construction component. Somebody's got to do the work, get it in on budget, and that's why there are a mountain of legal signatures necessary for that fund because it's such a high risk for investors. And then you have the management aspect. So I'm counting 4. Are there any other little components that would be a part of, from your perspective and your business model, the turnkey rental business that I'm missing here, Mark?
Well, at the beginning, we thought sales and marketing would be a huge component, but due to demand, it's actually not been as much of a strain or push or dollar amount to actually market it. When we originally first got into turnkey, we said, all right, well, we got every 10 properties we do, let's sell off 2 or 3 of them. And we kind of figured, as construction's wrapping up, we'll put it on the market. We will, there's usually a 60 to 90 day lag time before we cash out. If we don't sell it by the time we cash out, we'll just keep it. We kind of build everything out the same, whether we're selling or keeping it. So it wasn't a big deal. But it really turned into some pretty high demand pretty quick where we sold almost everything for that first year. That kind of forced us to early this year to really, so it all starts with acquisition. We have to have, and it's such a balance, Dan, it's such a balance. You have to have enough properties coming through, but enough properties where it's not too much for construction. Then there's only so many available tenants, quality tenants out there in the market one time. So you're trying to balance all this out. And then you want to cash out and pay out the private money we have for the short-term financing before you, or do you need more private money? Should we go? But if you have too much private money, then you're paying interest on money that's not being used. So that's really what the challenge is for us. And it's all, don't get me wrong, and some of it's good problems to have, but it's trying to balance all those different things together to be able to make the most out of your money, because sometimes if you have a property sit there for 3 or 4 months that eats $3,000 or $4,000 out of your profit of either, if you're keeping it, that's just your money, or that's your profit if you're selling it.
Great point. I like that. The balance is the same challenge I deal with in my fix and flip business. I mean, we generally don't pull the private money out of the, million or so that we have available until we have a deal on the table. So we have access to the money without any cost, but by the same token, we're racing against accredited investors who have money and know how to invest it for similar rates of return that I can offer them through our fix and flip business. So we're constantly at risk for our private money sources sort of dwindling. And then when we have the right opportunity, it's the same thing. Does the money still available for us? So money is a little bit of a challenge to keep at a consistent pace. And then the same thing, we might find ourselves invested with $1 million in fix and flip renovations, but then our construction team, we literally might have a piece of inventory, a house, sitting on the shelf for 3 or 4 weeks after settlement before construction starts, and I'm pulling my hair out because there's just no way to control it. Do I try another contract? It's the same kind of thing that we deal with, I guess, everybody who's in the real estate business. But as far as the turnkey rentals for you, even these 200 units, let's talk about the source of deals. Where do you find these houses? What is your criteria, your average acquisition price? And, we talked about choosing the right block in the neighborhood a little bit, but let's talk about the numbers and the amount of construction and kind of where your deals are coming from, Mark.
So when we first started doing this, our average unit price was between purchase and rehab. We were somewhere in the 40 to, I think we were right around, when we look back after the first 2 years, we were right around 43,000 per unit, all in. Now we've moved more into a single family model, and we do a lot more in the beginning. We didn't do a full, when we first started, we really tried to get by, and if the furnace is in there, we might get a couple more years out of that furnace, and then that becomes expense 24 months down the road, or 12 months if we weren't that lucky. So now we go in and we just change out that furnace and don't even mess with that. So our cost now that we have might run upwards to, I believe our average cost between, it's kind of off because you have single families and you have some flats in there that will adjust because you don't have, it's just a little off. So I believe we're right around 62,000 that we have, that we're in, 62 per unit. And that obviously goes back where some properties are in the 70s, and sometimes we get good deals and we're in the 45 or 55. So our criteria for buying properties, that's another thing that's really changed since we started in 2008. You heard me say before, the $3,500, 3,000 square foot house that I used to brag about. Now I run the opposite way on something like that. We love these, and it was a frame house too. So we're really, we really try focusing on brick. We stay between that 900, actually some of the houses on the smaller end are even like 750 square feet to about 12 or 1,300 square feet is our biggest. That gives us the ability to control and predict our costs on turnovers. At the same time, then it's kind of an average size home where someone could probably add a person or two in there if their life situation changes. But if a person or two leaves, they're not going to be running and say, I need an apartment because this is too big for me. So it helps. We like to think it helps with our vacancy, our consistency of keeping our tenants consistent. You have a one-bedroom apartment, you almost positively know that person's going to grow out of that more than likely in the next couple of years. So there's no way you're going to get 7 years out of that person. The neighborhoods, obviously, that was something else that changed since 2008. We just bought wherever. It didn't matter. In 2008, if it was under 25 grand and I was able, and we could kind of fall in that 40, 50,000 all-in type price, we bought it. It didn't matter. We're able to really, now, that's the other thing. Our price per home probably went up a little too because our purchase. We'd rather pay $5 grand more and be in a little better neighborhood than not be. So because that kind of the return overall, the ease of management, all that comes into play as you go on with that property. But so the neighborhoods we focus on, we're really right now we're in about 5 or 6 neighborhoods in the south side of Chicago. Mostly, they're very. A couple of neighborhoods we are in have more multi, and a couple of neighborhoods we have are almost all single family. So we kind of have a mix of that. And we like single family. A lot of people, I can argue, I hear those questions come up all the time in the different forums about the single family versus multi. And honestly, I could argue it either way, but if I had to stick with one decision, we're bigger fans of single family homes.
I've heard that from quite a few investors. There's one furnace, one tenant, one set of issues to deal with, whereas, the duplexes have, multiple sets of issues. Like you just said, there's a case for either way. Mark, what is the purchase price of the last 3 deals that came through your pipeline?
So we put a property at the judicial sale under contract, or we bought it technically. We buy it right away with there for, I believe, $20,000 last week, and then I put a HUD property under contract for $29,000. Actually, both of them happened on Friday. And then another one was through another agent that got accepted yesterday through the MLS, and that was $23,000 or $24,000 right in there.
And do you buy them? It sounds like HUD, judicial sale, agent. Are you finding these pretty much like listed in an open market sources, or do you guys do like man that signs and have relationships with wholesalers and do some off market stuff too?
So we bought, I was looking at this the other day when I was looking through our books for 15. We bought 3 wholesale deals in 2015, and I really tried in 2015 to really build more relationships with those because I think as the HUD or the MLS or judicial sale either becomes more popular or less inventory, which is inevitable, I want to make sure that these wholesale people are coming to me or to us to bring us deals. And we even offer to pay their commission or more to bring it to us first to present us stuff. So that's really one of the goals that we had in 2015-16 to more off-market deals, along the lines of stuff you and your guys work on, because that's where it's going. The MLS will dry up. There's still some deals on there, but it's inevitably going to dry up in the next 12 to 14 months.
I cut my teeth, Mark, in the 2006 market. That was my first year in the business. I recently had my 10-year mark for the day that I went to the real estate seminar. That was this past weekend. 10 years ago was when I went to the real estate seminar with the Rich Dad style, marketing. I remember how hot the market was in 2006 and even into 2007. You couldn't touch anything on the MLS. I remember the REO properties being bought. Obviously we had much more loose money, and people could get mortgages on that stuff. But, certain deals we would get at rehab numbers, and we would just mop and glow the floors, and we would put it on the market and sell it as a handyman special. And they were like, you just have to renovate that house. And people would buy it for almost not a full retail rehab value, but certainly the same profit margin that you would have had when you rehabbed it. So, will we see back at that point, depending on the supply of money, I'm not 100% sure if we'll get to quite that point, but you're right. The inventory and being able to survive in a more competitive market with less inventory. I mean, the key is definitely the off-market deals, and those who have those relationships and have built those systems will definitely be a little more in command of their destiny than they are today, I'd say. So let's talk about price point on the other side. So we have a turnkey rental. You've purchased it through your sources, Mark. You've done the renovation, and you kind of have this inventory. Are you still at a point you don't care if anyone buys it? You can still do a refinance? Are you still kind of doing that as part of your business right now, keeping a few of the turnkey rentals?
No. I mean, this time last year our goal was to keep 70% of them, and that kind of changed. So now it's like, all right, we got to do more so we can keep more, if anything, is our motivation, because at the end of the day, we don't want to sell away everything, sell away all of our product, because, you can make wax on each deal, but at the end of the day, you still got to be left with something. And that's why we got into it, was for that positive cash flow.
And I think that's important to note for anybody who's looking at turnkey rentals, to have somebody whose aim is, almost your interests are in competition with somebody who would want to buy the property there. But by the same token, or on the flip side, Mark, you could say, hey, this guy believes in these neighborhoods and these blocks so much, he's buying them for himself. So if I want to grab one, just because, my access, my resources, cash, construction, management, whatever is limited, if I want to buy 1, 2, or 3 off of somebody like Mark, this guy, in one sense, I'm kind of competing with him, so I'm going to have to pay whatever price is going to make everybody happy. I'm not going to be able to steal the property from Mark. But on the flip side, you're also investing side by side in those neighborhoods because you believe in it, you know the results, and you're willing to put yourself there long term, just like you're putting your clientele and their money and their resources long term into the same neighborhoods. So price point wise, Mark, on these deals, are you selling these units with some equity? Is this the possibility where, somebody could buy it with cash, do a refinance, and get 90 to 110% of their money out of the deal? Or is this going to be strictly on an ROI basis, and it's kind of more of a cash investor looking for, 12, 13% return on their money? And, what LTV or what equity position, if any, would be expected in the turnkey rentals that you sell and offer to the market?
So the last 3 appraisals that came back, 3 appraisals came back this week, and we're always curious. We always ask the buyers where to come in, because we're pretty confident that there's a gap of equity there. It'd be small. The last 3 appraisals all came in from it was $5,000 to one was $13,000, higher than our actually what we're selling into. So on that, those price points were all right around $100,000. So that's 5 to 10% equity that's actually even built in there already, which I guess in one faction it is good. You get equity, but also can provide a buyer with a peace of mind that they have an exit strategy. If they have to sell this thing, that 5 or 10% can cover their closing costs or the commissions they need to do it, and be out and actually make $1,000 or $2,000 still back. So, but yeah, at the same time, the cash and refinance, cashing out, that's always an opportunity that should have no problem getting that 80 or 85, maybe even 90% LTV based on the new appraisal.
Can you tell me the avatar for your client in the turnkey rental? Have you seen a common thread of maybe what industries, what background? Is this a professional who has some money to invest, or is it more the entrepreneurial investor? Can you just describe maybe, kind of the ideal people or the people you've seen come across the desk and buy turnkey rentals?
Is the millennials. I'm on that top edge of the millennial age, but it's all these young professionals that might have lost confidence in the stock. I'm making assumptions there, but they might have lost confidence in the stock market, or they're not in the industry or working jobs, or feel they're going to be in the same industry or job that the 401k or some sort of pension is going to provide them with money after they retire. So they're looking at other means of setting themselves up down the road. So they're it's a big thing on, you got websites like Bigger Pockets and all these other forums that you could go to. And then you got all these guys that are talking, pitching real estate, larger seminars. So it's always in people's ears, especially the younger generation. So it's really a lot of these, and I say millennials, I believe, that would put someone the oldest at 34 or something like that. So probably 40 years and younger, majority of what I'm looking at. But we also we sold a property under contract last week, and I was talking with the buyer, and her problem was she's been at one company for a long time, which is rare. But she's about 10 years out from retiring, and her 401k is nowhere near where she needs to be. So about 2 years ago, she started buying properties, and Chicago is going to be the last one she'll have money to invest in. But she's bought a few in different places. But they're just looking at it as a means of cash flow after retirement. or a means for them to exit their 9 to 5 at some point sooner than 60 or 65 years old.
On one of your recent deals, Mark, let's say that the buyer paid $100,000 for the deal and he had to put, I don't know, 15, 18 grand into the deal to get it closed, closing costs, mortgage, however he took the property down. After his refinance, what kind of a cash flow is he receiving above the mortgage? So what's the rent, what's the mortgage, and how much should somebody expect to make on a turnkey rental for it to be a good deal or a fair deal at least?
On a finance deal where the guy's putting 20% down, we're projecting people are getting anywhere between 17 and really 21% return on that money they have down. For all-in cash deals, we're generally looking between 9 and 11%. So in translation, it comes out to be, I believe, about with a finance deal, it comes out to be about $200 to $300 a month, and then the cash deal it comes out to be about $400 to $500 a month on a cash deal. Right in that ballpark. I don't have the spot on, but because I always kind of work off the percentages.
Got it. And what would be the worst situation that you have ever seen on a single-family rental? Whether it was yours, clients, what was the worst, craziest situation that unfolded for you or under your watch?
Under my watch. It's you go into these vacant properties and you never know who's going to be in those. But, I don't know. I've seen a bunch of crazy stuff in the old neighborhoods that we used to be in. They're no longer, that's what we're selling. But in those neighborhoods, there's a couple shootings, and the UPS guy got shot, and one my partner was there for the UPS guy get shot in the butt. There's been some crazy stories like that. I actually wrote a blog on it about one where we used to, everything was justified, decision we made or every problem we came up to. We said it doesn't matter. We're only into these for $40,000, or we're making the cash flow is awesome, and then the blog goes into talking about how one day it all came to reality when I had to duck down in my car because there were shots being fired in this particular neighborhood, and it's just not worth it anymore at that point. But we've seen. I always feel horrible. I hate. I'm a big animal lover, and you go in these houses and you'll see people that left they went up and left, and they left their dog behind. That always that eats me up inside on that note. Yeah,
I hear that. I had one of my Philadelphia friends told me the story. I believe it was like his first rental property. It's in, one of the South Side style neighborhoods. It's in the Highland Gardens section of Chester. And he said the tenant was paying, for 4 or 5 years straight. And I forget if she went bad or what, but when she moved out, she must not have ever took the diapers from the baby, out to the trash. She just chucked them out the back window. So there was 3 or 4 feet of diapers piled up in the backyard, when she left. I'm like, oh man, that's unique.
We have. I don't know. That's I've had that happen a few times in a few different times. Right out the window. It's always in the multi where they don't want to walk downstairs or they don't want to. On the back.
Yeah, man, that's, is what it is. But we have to shift, I guess, a bit. Management techniques, right? So what strategies do you have for placing and choosing the right tenants in these neighborhoods, Mark?
Well, we have, so there's a bunch of different stuff that we do. And one of the bigger ones that makes me feel good inside about moving forward with a tenant is the cleared rent checks. If someone's renting somewhere else, we feel that, they should be able to provide some sort of proof that they paid their rent. Not the handwritten receipts, which usually that's a red flag. Once you get those, that's a red flag. They got a job. The money goes into their bank account most of the time. It's deposited. And we want to see a paper trail of that landlord getting paid. And if they can't prove that, we don't rent to them. That's one of the bigger ones that we really live by. We try to limit dogs. We're not crazy on dogs, especially bigger dogs, but we make sure we always have photos of every dog that in the application process. That's something that we started about 2 years ago. I got sick of the 40-pound mixed lab that turns out to be the 110-pound pit bull that they just kind of no one ever knew. If you don't see the dog, you don't know. But so we get extra pictures up front on all of that nowadays. So
nice. Do you guys do home visits or anything like that when you're choosing a tenant?
We do. We don't do it every time, but we do it when there's we might be on the cusp of hey, I like this tenant, but we like proof. We like verification. That makes us feel good about moving a tenant. And once we feel good that this tenant's the right person, we want to treat them like gold. But until we kind of feel good that they're going to treat us back gold and pay our payments and not destroy our place, we have a hard time really throwing our customer service at them. So we like that. We like that feeling. So sometimes in that later step, we might say, hey, let's go check this out, to give us a tour. And then everyone kind of feels at ease when we go there and the place looks good and so forth. Landlords Records, another one that, and anyone can put anyone's name down for being their landlord. So we're very big on the tax records. If Joe Miller is your landlord, then why does it say Tanya Smith on there as the taxpayer? Explain that and prove it to us of what the difference is. So that's a big red flag for us.
Yeah,
we're not
that's an interesting one.
That's that one. So those facts line up. It's easy to prove that. It's all public records. Obviously, we run the eviction reports and all that. But the other big one is I lost my train of thought there. First-time home buyers or first-time tenants. I have a hard time putting first-time tenants in in our rentals because, Chicago's full of tons of slumlords, and they can't appreciate us until they've been screwed over by a slum landlord. At that point, the newbie, the first-time home renters, they haven't experienced life, they haven't experienced the gas bill, the electric bill. They don't realize that it's not just the rent that's $1,000; it's the other $500-$600 plus your food, all that stuff that you have to incorporate into your monthly. And it's usually the landlord that gets screwed on that. So they don't appreciate, they see one little ant, they're called the city because they say the place got bugs. And it's that experience that these tenants gain of going through a few other landlords that will only make them appreciate us as their landlord when they finally get to us. So we try to stay away from first-time tenants. And in single-family homes, that's usually we don't get too many applicants for first-time renters, but we actually got one the other day, and it raised a lot of these questions.
Interesting point. Do you have any specific billing strategy for getting the rent? Like, do you send a statement each month, or how does that process work for your management clients?
So we don't do the statements, but we have an ease of payment. We have our management software, which we use Appfolio. It's helped us make huge strides in service we provide and tracking and the communication with the tenants. So through that system, we're able to email them various statements. If they're behind, we're able to email them their ledger. We're able to text message them, hey, your rent's late, or hey, today you've been charged a late fee because it's 6th of the month and we don't have your rent. So we really stay in constant communication with the tenants on a daily basis throughout the month. If they're behind, twice a week, someone's actually trying to communicate or stop by there, whether it be 5 days. It's kind of a moving target of how you handle collections. So my how we do it changes every a couple times a year because we kind of have new strategies or new approaches. Or last December, one of the new things that we were messing around with to do is, if tenants not calling us back, we call their emergency contact and tell them we haven't heard from them and they haven't paid rent, and that is immediately embarrassing them. Hey, we're really worried about the tenants and she hasn't paid rent for this month and it's the 15th and we haven't heard from her. We want to make sure she's okay. So then all of a sudden that mom or that brother-in-law, now she's embarrassed and she's going to come and contact us right away and pay rent. Hopefully that's the goal. So,
has that worked?
Stuff like that. Yeah, no, it worked. It actually worked 3 or 4 times. We actually really got a good kick out of that. And it was actually fun for us to do that.
That's classic. Mark, what about the late fees? Who gets the late fees in a management situation? Does that go to management or does that go to the owner who's sitting there waiting on that payment to make his mortgage?
No, we go at that goes to the owner. I know I've seen that happen both ways, and I never understood how the management fee, the management company could get that. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm eliminating a source of revenue for us. But we always felt that was the right. It doesn't make sense any other way but to go to the owner. Sometimes we justify renewing a tenant's lease because they've paid late 9 out of 12 months, and the owner just got another $1,000 for that month and for that year. So I mean that could be huge sometimes for an owner. If they're getting $12,000 a year and they get another $1,000, it's another 8% they made.
Interesting. What fee does a landlord expect to pay with your company for management? 10% across the board, 8%, or is there a sliding scale based on the number of properties?
Generally 8%. For our turnkey customers that buy from us in the city, it's all 8%. Out in the suburbs, our management starts at 8%, and then as the rent climbs higher, then it obviously goes down. So I think at $1,700 per month, that number breaks and goes down to 7 or 7.5%.
Got it. Is there a minimum charge? I mean, if you're dealing with like a $600, $700, $800 unit at 8%.
Yes, there is a minimum charge. Our minimum charge is $100 per unit.
$100 a unit. That's cool. So I've heard a couple different stories on this piece here, and I know a couple turnkey rental people do this part differently. But if you have a client who has mortgage information and you're collecting, or they have a mortgage on the property, are you willing to make a dual disbursement, one to the mortgage company with the escrow check, et cetera, and one to the client for their cash flow? Or do you guys strictly do one disbursement to the owner and the owner handles paying his own mortgage?
On the management side, we push all the mortgage payments back to the landlord. There's too much at risk there with FICO or things getting screwed up or late fees, and we definitely push that back to the owner. The same with association fees. We push that back to the owner as well, too, in the townhouse community, which is not really our city stuff, but our suburb. So we really push all those things back, and we really try to push property taxes back, too. But for our turnkey properties, we pay all the property taxes for the owners on the behalf.
Got it. Okay. Were there any other pieces of management information that you think I missed that you think would be important to mention, Mark, for the listeners?
Well, management is, we developed our turnkey company in the city only because we were confident that we had the correct management in place. And our management that we started in the city was really only developed around us buying properties down there because we weren't confident enough in subbing that out to another management company. So management is such a key component to everything, whether it's a turnkey property or just a regular property. I saw something on one of the forums that said it's better to have an average investment and have a stellar management company than a stellar investment and an average management company. So however that you can translate that, it just translates to me as the management company is such a key piece to your success, especially because you're really investing in that management company to set you up for the rest of your life if you have 7, 10, 15 properties with them. Great point.
See that we're getting about to the top of the hour, so I have a couple more questions here for you, Mark. Do you have any decent book recommendations for our listeners?
Well, I'll tell you. So I read the Rich Dad Poor Dad. That comes up. I think that was on the last podcast. And that was the book back in 2004 or 5 that made me realize that, I am never going back to the corporate world. And I was already in the GC and work on that, but I'm staying away from the corporate world and going to focus on being an entrepreneur. That was a big eye-opener back when that was first out. In 2014, I read the book E-Myth, which is why small businesses fail. And that was huge eye-opener for how we were running our business and how we were gauging our business and how we were planning and so forth. And that was huge for us. That was a big game changer for me. And that only rolled into the best thing that, Dan, that I did in the last 18 months was realize that I could listen to books on tape. Awesome. And it really, I can't. I love knowledge, like you're talking about earlier. I love learning all the time, 24/7, anytime I can be. But I open up a book. I don't care if it's 3 in the afternoon or 3 in the morning. 2 pages later, I'm sleeping. Like I can't. I don't know if it's my ADHD, but I can't read a book. It's tough. I've done a couple. Don't get me wrong. But so the book on tape has been awesome. But I listened to 30, 40 books last year, and the other big one that came early in the year last year was Work the System, and it's by Sam Carpenter. And this is really my answer for your question. It's Work the System. Sam Carpenter. It's all about systematizing your business and being able to be repeatable for the ability to scale.
And I believe you're referring to Audible, correct, Mark? We're going to plug as the book, audiobook Audible, run by Amazon. It's a great app. If anybody does not know about that, I'm amazed when I run into people who haven't downloaded that or they're not aware that they can just get these books for, $8, $9, $10, $15 on Audible and listen to them while you're driving. I mean, it is definitely a real game changer for knowledge consumption, that's for sure.
Yep.
Cool. Do you have any final jewels of wisdom to share with our listeners, Mark?
I listen to this podcast weekly, and it's directed towards newbies. It's directed towards experience. I read forums about, every level of people. The newbies, it's tough to really get into real estate without jumping in. I guess my jewel of wisdom is that, right now we're kind of in a market that you could buy a property, and even if it wasn't the best purchase, you could still turn it into a successful purchase. So jumping in for these newbies and doing what they really want to do is probably one of the biggest lessons they could do. That's far better than all the books or forums or podcasts they listen to. But don't stop listening to this podcast.
Cool. And how can people get more information about you? Do you have contact information you'd like to share, Mark?
Yeah, anyone could find our information. We have our website, gcrealtyinc.com, inc.com. And then also we have our turnkey website, which is gcrealtyinvestments.com, which they both link to each other. So if you end up on one, you can find the other. And all my information on there, my cell phone's on there. So anyone can reach out.
Cool. Thank you, Mark, for coming on the show. I've taken a couple pages of notes here and had some great insights, especially on the management piece there. So I'm hoping our listeners did as well. I appreciate you coming on the show.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. And to you, my loyal listeners, thank you for continuing to tune in to the REI Diamond Show. Do you know anybody else who might enjoy this episode? Send them a link. You can also sign up to receive new episode notifications at www.reidiamonds.com. As a bonus for signing up, I'll send you my special report called 7 Sources of Off-Market Deals. There's also a public relations link on that page for those interested in applying to come on the show as an expert guest. That website again is www.reidiamonds.com. Oh, and in case you didn't already know, the only thing I ever have for sale is profitable real estate deals. I'll never spam guru products to the email address you entrust to my care. Dan Breslin here. I'll catch you next time. Remember, here at the REI Diamond Show, we're dedicated to increasing, multiplying, and protecting your net worth.
Thanks for listening to the REI Diamond Interview. To receive the REI Diamonds newsletter and interview monthly, sign up now at www.reidiamonds.com.